Welcome to the new Charisma School free course, Awakening Magnetism and Charisma. The goal with this free training is to give you the foundational knowledge to understand magnetism and charisma, how they work, where do they come from, what stops you from having them, how you can develop them, and so on. I won't be giving any exercise here for the actual development of magnetism and charisma in yourself, being that it's a bit more complex procedure than what can be given in this series. So you'll find the training courses on our website. But it's important for everyone to understand what exactly is magnetism and charisma. So let's start with the basic definitions. What is magnetism? What is charisma? In the beginning, we didn't really differentiate charisma from magnetism. We had different words for it and a similar meaning. But over time, as we also develop our vocabulary better, it became increasingly clear that they were different, even though most people will think of them as synonyms. Sometimes our language can really be limited in differentiating internal concepts. So in most of these videos, we'll talk about magnetism, being that we'll talk about charisma in our last video. We consider magnetism as a distinctive atmosphere or a quality that surrounds a person. It's the same definition as an aura, although I usually stay away from that particular word due to the different associations that are done in a New Age community with aura readings, color descriptions, and so on. So we want to stay very clear of all that and use our own terminology with something that you can actually feel and understand in a different way of what is now commonly considered aura. So even though the concepts are similar, you'll find that the way of approaching them are not. Still, the concept of an atmosphere, of a certain energy quality surrounding a person, is something that is completely correlated with magnetism, and that is the definition that we use. It doesn't take much to realize that this is a real phenomenon. You don't even need to be very energetically aware to feel magnetism. Just think about how good you feel with certain people, even if you just met them, and how with others, just a look it's enough to realize that you don't like that person. And often, this is unconscious. But just a minor 3-second look at someone is enough to understand whether you like them or not, whether you feel good with them or not, whether they can be your lover or not. A 3-second look at someone gives us a lot more information about someone that we may think. Then our rational mind starts to slowly, logically deduct reasons from what you're already feeling. Probably you didn't like someone as soon as you lay your eyes on this person, yet since your rational mind didn't have anything objective about him or her, it will seek out reasons. So little by little, you'll find them. It's very easy to start to understand this. Whenever you meet someone new for the first time, right when you first look at that person, ask yourself silently, do I like this person? And notice the first answer that comes to mind. No time for rational thinking. If you enter into a logical and rational internal debate, then this is lost. You want the first genuine feeling. You'll inevitably understand quite well what this person's magnetism elicits in you. It doesn't really mean that this person is a good person or a bad person, but it tells you something about their magnetism, about the atmosphere, the energetic quality that they are exuding. So the magnetism of someone in itself is almost often, unless you have a very good energy awareness, completely unconscious, but it has a very concrete reaction in you. It's mostly in the level of feelings first. The magnetism elicits a certain feeling in you, and the rational mind catches up later. This raises a different issue. Are you feeling this person's pure magnetism or your reaction to it? It's a bit of both, actually. You feel this person's pure magnetism and you react to it. It takes some self-knowledge and energy awareness to differentiate both and to feel the actual magnetism with little to no automatic reactions to it. It's certainly possible as you develop your energetic awareness, since you can fine-tune it to the magnetism while differentiating it from your reaction. But this is definitely something to consider when we attempt to feel and understand magnetism. So we don't always feel the person's pure magnetism. In fact, we are trained, we will react unconsciously to it. Let's say that you have problems with sexuality as a whole. It means that you'll most likely react negatively to someone who has a strong sexual magnetism. Is that person's magnetism bad or negative? Well, most likely not. But you can react negatively to it based on your previous conditionings. Or sometimes a heavy resistance will be put out in a certain type of magnetism, but not to another. That's fine and expected. Although then you may say, wait a minute, then what's the point of developing any kind of magnetism since it'll always be filtered by the conditions of everyone around us? Is it really worth it? To make matters easier for you to understand, we can use an analogy of considering magnetism as a fragrance that you exude and other people can smell. It's something that you can consistently have on and everyone can smell it. Some people will like it, other people won't. But just like the fragrances, some of them will be more popular than others and will be liked far more than others, which tend to be quite niche. What you want is to develop a kind of magnetism that most people will like, or at the very least, a magnetism that the right people for you will like. A strong millionaire CEO leader will emit a certain magnetism that people outside that world will not like or even understand. Yet, it will most likely be perfect for the social circle that you want to be in. The same way, you may want to develop a strong sexual magnetism that most people will be drawn to, even if it's inevitable, some people won't like it or will feel threatened by it. As long as most people or the people that you want to have around you will like it, then your goal can be accomplished. So I'm using very simplistic examples to illustrate a more complex reality. Of course, there are many nuances to this, but let's stick with the broad strokes for now. So, as a summary, we can say that we emit a certain atmosphere, an energy quality to everyone that surrounds us. Everyone can feel it immediately as they come in contact with us, in the first 3 seconds, and will react to it based not only on our energetic quality in itself, but also their own internal and unconscious reactions to it. Still, just like a popular fragrance will be liked by many people, while an unpopular fragrance will not, the same can be said about our magnetism. This is quite different from the usual tips and tricks to increase your magnetism and charisma, as in smile more, keep an open posture, dress well, and so forth. As good as they may be for other contexts, the energy can become confused by it. For example, I'm sure you have seen people smiling, yet you can feel them to be very uncomfortable. You can see someone with an open posture, yet you sense that there is something incongruent there. That's because your energy doesn't lie. You may try to do all these things, but eventually something will feel off. Why? Because you are trying to project a certain image of yourself, and something else inside is projecting the real you, your real energy quality that you really are inside. So this can even be worse than your real magnetism, because you will now be incongruent, and others will immediately pick up on that. It's like when you try to mix up a bunch of colors and only end up with black. The general rationale for this type of advice is to fake it until you make it. So you have all these behaviors so often that eventually you become like that. But there's a big problem with this advice. Let's say that you do fake it until you make it. What will happen is that if indeed you become good at those behaviors, eventually you create a strong mask that camouflages what you are and feel inside. So it represses your real energy. In our terminology, it's like you are only training your projection and nothing else. So you end up good in projecting certain energy qualities that you don't really have or that you really are inside. Maybe you don't even feel them, but become quite good at faking them. This creates a sort of a double life. You have a mask that you put in certain situations and your real magnetism that can be completely different or even fully opposite. This dichotomy forces you to repress your real magnetism, your real energy, and this won't end well. Because each time you repress energy, this energy needs to come out in some way. The energy is never destroyed inside of you. It doesn't vanish. So it finds an outlet that is often not so good for you. This outlet can be drugs, alcohol, anxiety, panic attacks, illnesses, and so on. This is exactly what happened to many actors, actresses, singers, public figures. They had a public persona, a public mask that projected a strong magnetism, but this ended up being a fake one since the real one was repressed, and naturally it ended up badly. Marilyn Monroe is a prime example of this. She had a public mask with a strong sexual magnetism, but this was covering up a broken woman inside. But everyone only cared about the sexually magnetic woman that she was, and this had a tragic result that we now know. Although we all wear certain masks in different situations, the stronger the dichotomy and the interval between what we are projecting and what we are and feel inside, the more energy is repressed, and hence, the worse the consequences will be. For example, of course, you are different when you are with your boss than when you are with your friends or your wife or your husband. But if you try to consistently project a solid, professional, competent image to your boss, if you know that inside you are hanging by a thread and barely holding up, this will eventually backfire. There's a whole lot of repressed energy that will need an outlet. So yes, you can successfully create a magnetic mask. In other words, you can train your projection only to have a fake mask that projects a certain quality of energy when you want, even if inside your energy is completely different. If that's the only thing that you want, then you'll be better off taking an acting class. This will serve you much better than anything else in establishing this magnetic mask. In summary, energetically, two things can happen in the energy that surrounds you as you create this magnetic mask with fake behaviors or really good acting. The first one is incongruency, also called bad acting. You'll project a mixture of different types of energies that are opposites, so people will simply feel something is off about you. In one hand, you'll be attempting to project confidence, for example, and in the other hand, people will feel that you are not like that, since your true energy is still there very much so. So your magnetism, the energy that you are projection, is a mixture of different energies. Hence, it will be confusion for others. It won't be appealing, and instead it will be repelling, since its variance, it's inconstant and it's fleeting, so that it neutralizes itself and fails to give a definite shade or a definite color to your magnetism. Or the second event is that your mask is so good and appealing that people will feel that strong energy being projected and not the smaller one that you repressed very well. This is called good acting. You develop the skill to inflate the appealing magnetic mask and deflating your true nature. So naturally, people will want what is more appealing for them. Your true nature is still there, and those who have deeper relationships with definitely know it well, but you repress it good enough for most public occasions. So this happens the same as a rubber ball at the beach. Ever try to put one underwater? You can submerge it for as long as your hand is on top of it, but once you let go, it jumps up strongly and will often eat you in the face with it. The same thing happens here. Repress it deep enough, eventually it will pop back out with a vengeance. Energetically, your magnetism is indeed a reflection of your mask, but only temporarily, as you continue to hold the ball underwater. So it's like you are holding your breath during all this time. So we differentiate a magnetic mask from your true magnetism. Although both are technically your magnetism, so the energy that you are projecting and that other people feel, the magnetic mask is a temporary magnetism, while your true magnetism is the one that you tend to project and be all the time, whether alone or in public. No faking and repression required. We chose not to train to create magnetic masks in charisma school. Although it's faster and more appealing, we prefer to train in authenticity, in effortlessly projecting to the outside what you feel inside, in having a magnetism that reflects yourself. We are not interested in creating better and more magnetic masks. Instead, we are interested in creating a true, more magnetic energy inside, in transforming your real magnetism into what you want to be, in changing your actual energy so you'll feel more magnetic as well as more authentic in what you are doing. And yes, the road to get there takes more work and it's harder, but in the long term, the rewards are also far greater and the dangers much less than optimizing the fake magnetic mask. In this video, we've introduced the concept of magnetism, both real and fake. So you've understood what is magnetism, the energy behind it, and what happens with the common advice of developing by creating these fake masks around what you project to the world. In the next video, we'll explore what makes magnetism attractive and why does it attract or repel others in a very basic principle that most likely you've already heard about. See you soon.